Good evening. As usual, just gonna wait about 2 minutes, maybe not even that long, before our audience, our Facebook audience, can start to join us.
There's Rosa Kempson. She never misses.
That's awesome. All right. Good evening, everybody. We already got a nice little crowd out there. We're happy to be back with you this evening. For those of you that don't know, my name is Rabia Finch Lewis, and I'm with Dr. Charles S. Finch, a noted historian, African scholar. So we're gonna talk today about the three Marys and their Egyptian counterparts. And I think I personally am excited about this talk, so hopefully we all can get something from it. So I'm just going to give it over to Dr. Finch.
Yes, I'm calling this I thought about this being a discussion about the three Marys, because there were three Marys who were waiting outside the tomb of Jesus when he was resurrected. Right? But there's actually five Marys in the New Testament. We won't try to talk about all five, and we will focus on the three. But there's at least one more that we can mention. I should also mention that we are going to talk also about Egyptian goddesses who are not exactly counterparts, but more prototypes of these Marys. You see, because in the New Testament, or like I said, Christianity, they don't focus too much on the women, do they? Those of you who are out there are Christians. I mean, me and my family still go to the Catholic Church, and they seldom ever talk about the Virgin Mary. All right. Now let's talk about Mary first. The Marys. Mary, actually, I think the name Mary, actually comes from ancient Egyptian, because there's an Egyptian word Mer, which means literally the beloved, right, or love. And of course, the first, there's a couple of things. When the Holy Family fled Herod out of Palestine, where did they go? They went to Egypt. So Jesus' family, you don't see him again until he's 12 years old. Where was he all that time? Egypt. Then you don't see him again until he's 33. Where was he all that time? Egypt. All right. Now, interestingly enough, Egypt is the first whole country to convert to Christianity in early 4th century AD. Now, there were small communities of Christians, of course, but as an entire country, Egypt was the first. Now, the Marys. Let's just kind of say who they are. Mary, mother of Jesus. Some people call her Mary, mother of God. She is so well known that I don't have to say much about her. Almost as well known is Mary Magdalene, or Mary Magdalene, although she has this unsavory reputation, which is undeserved. She is called by, shall we say, bigoted Christian fathers a harlot. No, she was not. She was a devoted follower of Jesus. Now, if you go outside the Gospels and look what they call the Apocrypha, there's one scene where Jesus is kissing Mary Magdalene on the lips. I'm not making that up. And of course, if you go to your church or your Sunday school, they're never going to talk about that. It's not in the four Gospels, so it's not canonical, okay? But Mary Magdalene was probably rather more important in Jesus' life than the New Testament writers wanted to admit, all right? But she is the second major Mary. Oh, and by the way, the reason why we talk about the three Marys is because there were three Marys waiting outside the tomb of Jesus when he was resurrected, okay? So that's why I first thought of this as talking about the three Marys, but there's actually five Marys, all right? We'll talk maybe about four of them if we can, all right? Now, one of the things, and I'm going to kind of blend now some ancient Egyptian material, although I thought I was going to do these two things kind of one after the other, but no, we're going to have to blend some of this. Why? Because when you go to Europe today, and if you're looking at, there are 300 different places, churches, religious centers, where you can find the Black Madonna and Christ, and the child, Black Madonna and child. That's, of course, Mary. How did they come up with that? The worship of Isis in the last few centuries BC began to spread out of Egypt, especially into the Roman Empire. The Romans were deeply, shall we say, enamored with Isis. And not just the Romans, but I mean, Rome, had the empire, and Rome was the most powerful nation in the world. In fact, the priests of Jupiter, who was Zeus, didn't like it because the people were being drawn to Isis. Not a form of Isis, a Roman form, Isis that was brought from Egypt. Well, what did she look like? She was black skinned and Horus. She's always carrying the child Horus. Mm-hmm. Always. So it's Isis and the child Horus. Black skin. All right? So when Christianity comes in and kind of overruns Egypt, the allegiance and the connection between, let me slow down. When Rome, this is really what I want to say. When Rome overruns Europe, I'm sorry, I'm getting myself all confused. When the Christian fathers come into Europe, 3rd or 4th century, of course, they are iconoclasts. They want to get rid of all so-called paganism and idolatry. All right? And so they come across these hundreds of places where the icon of Black Isis and Black Horus are in place and command the total worship and allegiance of the people there. Now, that was so strong and so indelible that the Christian, the ones who were trying to, the missionaries, made an interesting strategic decision. They did not try to destroy these icons, if you will, of Black Isis and Black Horus, because they were trying to, of course, achieve mass conversion. And the connection to Isis and Horus was so strong that to try to remove them was going to accomplish the very opposite of what these Christian missionaries wanted to do. There would have been an uprising, and they would not have been able to accomplish their mission. So they did something very strategic, clever really. They turned Black Isis and Black Horus into the Black Madonna and Child. Now, it gets even more interesting. During the French Revolution at the end of the 18th century, it was a very sort of anti-clerical movement. In other words, they were against religion. All right? The revolutionaries of France. And everywhere they had conquered a large portion of Europe. And wherever they went, they were anti-clerical, anti-religious, and so they were destroying icons and shrines and everything else. And so all of these Black Madonna and Child icons and shrines got destroyed during the French Revolution and during the Napoleonic era. Well, Napoleon was defeated at Waterloo in 1815, and so the old aristocracy and royalty came back into power, and they were restoring what they called the old regime, and that included in the religious sphere. Now remember, all of the icons of Mary, Black Madonna and Child had been destroyed, and therefore all these icons of Mary and Jesus, baby Jesus. So what did the people do? These these rulers that are coming back, they reestablished in 300 different places the same icons of Mary and Jesus, Mary and baby Jesus. And what did they do? They painted them black again. They didn't leave them white. They painted them black again. So even now, in 300 different parts of Europe, Italy, Spain, Poland, parts of Germany, you can find up to, all over Europe, 300 black Madonnas and child. And what you're looking at, if you ever go there, maybe some of you have been to Europe and you have seen them, what you're looking at is Isis and Horus, painted because when they came out of Egypt by the Romans, they came out in their natural coloring, black. All right. So that says a lot about the Mary that is known from the Gospels, okay, from the New Testament. And we know about Mary Magdalene. There were two other Marys. One was another Mary who was a follower of Jesus, because his most dedicated followers were women. That whole business about Jesus, the stone being rolled away from the tomb, and go read your New Testament if you haven't. Reread that. And Jesus coming out of the tomb, fully resurrected after 3 days. All right, died on the cross. 3 days. He rose again from the dead. Walked out of the tomb. Who was waiting for him? 3 women. All of them named Mary. Mary, mother of Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and then Mary, mother of James. There's a fourth Mary named Mary of Bethany, who we'll talk about in a minute. Where were the apostles? They had run for their lives. Nowhere to be found. So the Marys were there when Jesus came out and resurrected. That isn't emphasized very much, is it? Those are the 3 Marys that kind of form the substance of our discussion, at least this part of it. But there's another Mary. Actually, there's 2 others, but there's one other one that I want to call attention to. This calls attention to when Jesus attended a feast. Okay, by that time he had acquired a following. He was indeed a revered holy man. All right, and there was one Mary there, who was, her name was Mary of Bethany. That's right, Mary of Bethany. She was taking oil, very expensive oil. First of all, she washed his feet, and then she poured the oil over his head, anointing him.
Yeah, say what that is in Egypt.
I'm sorry?
Say what that means in Egypt.
Well, it's a form. Oil is a form of, first of all, how can I say it? Of consecration and holiness, but it's also used to mummify the dead. So the oil is often affiliated with resurrection. Now, the apostles say, where they said they were outraged. How come she is taking this very expensive oil and wasting it? And Jesus said, no, she's not wasting it. She is anointing me for my time to come. That too was a Mary. All right? And then there was, as I say, Mary, mother of James and John. All right?
Who's Mary Cleophas?
Oh, that's just Cleophas. That was Mary. Cleophas was just a well-known figure again in Palestine. Right. But the point is here's the point that we're trying to get at. The role and position and contribution influence of women to the development of early Christianity is practically ignored. But you can see these strands through the Marys. Okay? Now, we've already talked about, and when they went into Europe, as I already said, and they found the black Isis and Horus All over Europe, they turned that icon into the Black Madonna and Child. All right? Now, and I've already said, Mary, in ancient Egyptian, Mer means love or beloved. All right? And I already said again, but it's worth repeating some things. The first whole country to convert to Christianity was, in fact, Egypt, because there was a lot in most of Christianity was referable to the ancient belief system of Egypt. It shall we say, derived from it when you get right down to it. All right. Now, let's talk about. Okay, we talked about the 4 Marys. Let's talk about the 4 goddesses in ancient Egypt. All right, because I consider them. I'm not saying that the Marys were exactly representations of these 4 ancient goddesses, but I say these 4 ancient goddesses were, as it were, the prototype. Isis, Hathor, Maat, and Nut. Okay? All of us, most people who have any familiarity with the ancient Egyptian religion or mythology know that Isis was the sister wife of Osiris. Her name was Aset in ancient Egyptian. She was also the sister, therefore, of Set. All right? So, and she was the mother of Horus. Oh, no. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. Osiris and Set had this mortal enmity, or Set did to Osiris, managed to kill him and cut him up into 14 pieces. This is brother against brother, Cain and Abel stuff, all right? Isis went and searched for all 14 of the pieces of the body of Osiris. And she is the one that put it all back together in one whole and resurrected him. Osiris, she breathed life back into Osiris. There was 14 pieces. There was one piece. This piece of Osiris was swallowed by a fish, his phallus. This is where it gets real interesting. Isis fashioned a new phallus for the dead Osiris, or the resurrecting Osiris, and she impregnated herself on that phallus, eventually giving birth to the child Horus. So this is a sense, Horus was conceived by Osiris post-resurrectionally. All right? So that's in one way in which Isis was called the Virgin Isis, because her impregnation was not by a ordinarily human form. It was by Osiris resurrected, that she herself did the resurrecting, even to the point of recreating his generative organ. That's some pretty serious stuff when you think about it. And though Set was still, he found out all about this, was looking for her, and he was going to kill that nephew of his who was Horus. So Isis went and hid in what they call the Sea of Reeds, which was a swamp, until she could raise Horus until he could achieve manhood. If I'm not mistaken, Moses was also raised in a swamp, a Sea of Reeds.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And that's okay. Let me not digress. And what happened then? Horus, when he achieved manhood, set out and they engaged in a titanic battle, going back and forth, back and forth. Finally, Horus was on the verge of actually conquering and destroying Set. That's when Thoth or Jehudi stepped in. Thoth or Jehudi is the personification of mind, will, intelligence, and balance. He said, no. You cannot have a universe that is all weighted in one way or the other. So he put a stop to the fighting and gave, what do you want to say, each of the combatants an equal domain. You know? So Thoth or Jehudi did that. Right. So that's what the balance was restored. And all this centered around Isis. And so you can see, so Isis was a very powerful goddess with a lot of aspects to her. All right? Now, the other is Hathor. Hathor, oh, and by the way, one of the Marys was a weaver, okay? She wove things, sewing, weaving. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Hope we can do it before, while we still have time. Hathor. Hathor might actually have been older than Isis. And she's at the same time, she was a form of Isis. Because her name, Hathor, head hair in ancient Egyptian means mansion of Horus. All right? And she had a lot of different aspects. She was the divine cow. She was the moon. She was the tree of life who poured out water to the thirsty souls in Amenta, the land of the dead. Goddess of beauty, love, sensuality, childbirth. In a lot of ways, she prefigured Isis. Hathor did. Right? And mansion of Horus. So she was also a sky goddess, a heavenly goddess. And so, yeah, she was, what do you want to say? She was related to Isis and may have even prefigured Isis. Because she was very ancient, very ancient. Now, after her, not after her, but along with her was the goddess Ma'at. Now, where do you find Ma'at? You find Ma'at in ancient Egypt always associated with the balance scales. The balance scales, not just that. She was truth, justice, balance, right order. She was, in effect, the order of the universe. Okay, so what you endeavored to do was live according to the dictates of Ma'at. And so therefore, Ma'at was, you know where you find Ma'at? Go out in front of any courtroom and you find the statue of justice, blindfolded. That's Ma'at. Why is the statue of justice blindfolded? It's so because she is not going to be, what's the word? She's not going to be biased by anybody. She's going to be strictly ruled by the dictates of justice. That's the original Ma'at. Okay. Then there's Neith, or Net, also a very ancient deity. All right. Now, interestingly enough, she is the goddess of weaving and cloth making, and she wove the strands that created the universe. Now, what I haven't said, but it's very important, and that's therefore she was very important as someone who presided over the mummification process. All right? Because Neith is one who provided the cloth necessary for mummification. Because you see, mummification, you preserve the body, you stand it upright, and it becomes a, what do you want to say? A figure of resurrection. Okay? Now,
you did mention Newt.
Well, I did mention Newt, yes. because Nut is the sky goddess. She's the kind of supreme goddess. Out of her womb, all of the other deities came: Osiris, Horus, Isis, Set, Thoth. She was, she was a sky goddess, but she was also the mother of all. And some people, just like I said, Neith. Some people identify her with Neith, because Neith is also a very old goddess, as I said. All right. And so, in fact, in the iconography of ancient Egypt, the sun. Let me see how this works. Oh yeah, at sundown, the sun is swallowed by Nut. And then in the morning, in the east, the sun comes out of her womb. That's how it's depicted in ancient Egyptian iconography. So Nut was the mother of all. Now, as I said, one of those Marys that I mentioned, we're going to go back to Neith, she was involved with weaving. All right? And there was something else I wanted to say about one of the Marys. As I said, well, three of them, as I say, were present when Jesus was resurrected. So, but there were 5 Marys total.
One was his mother.
One was Mary Magdalene. The other was Mary, mother of James and John. And the other is Mary of Bethany. She is the one, as I say, who anointed Jesus and washed his feet.
James and John, isn't that also the mother of Jesus?
No, she's separate. Now, she may have been related. They may have been cousins. All right, but she is the anointer, and she's the one who anointed.
No, Mary of Bethany is the anointer.
She is the anointer. Okay, she's the anointer. All right. So what I'm saying is, though you wouldn't know it by listening to people who talk about Christianity, I'm not talking about preach Christianity and do sermons, the presence of those women was paramount, was strategic, was definitive in the birth of Christianity. They're the ones who stood by Jesus when the apostles did not. And
you
that has to be.
Some questions?
Yeah, we can answer some questions now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there a Mary sect like the Essenes?
A what now?
I guess kind of like a sect.
Yeah, that's not a bad. That's a pretty good question. The Essenes actually preceded historical Christianity. It sort of gave rise to historical Christianity. They were, as it were, a mystical Christianity, profoundly influenced by ancient Egypt.
The Essenes.
The Essenes. Mm-hmm. That's
and
right.
And Jesus was a part of that.
Yeah, I'm glad that was mentioned. Mm-hmm. A lot of this, a lot of what you can learn about Jesus, you have to go outside the Gospels. You have to go into the Apocrypha. You have to go on other sources of information. There's a lot of information about him that has nothing to do with, not nothing to do, but is beyond and expands what the Gospel says. All right? And he was an Essene. His family, he grew up as an Essene. That's and the Essenes, as I said, had this mystical bent. Oh, the other thing about Jesus, worth mentioning, every time you read about when was Jesus born, 4 BC, and he died or was crucified when he was 33. No. He was born 120 BC, died when he was 51. He wasn't crucified, which is a Roman method of execution. He was hanged. He was hanged by Jewish authorities. Now.
And so you're saying that's the historical figure.
That's the historical figure.
Because that was another question. Were Mary and Jesus historical figures?
Yes.
Okay. Or myth?
No. Well, both. You got to understand, about so many individuals like that, the mythological and the historical have a way of merging. And it's hard to tease one out from the other. All right. The other thing to mention, however, the historical Jesus was born about 120 BC. In 119 BC, the age of Pisces began. Mm-hmm. The age of the devil fishes. I think I mentioned this in previous.
You have to look at other
previous
posts.
Yeah, and the age of Pisces, we're in it now. It ends in 20 years, but the historical Jesus was born within a year of the advent of the age of Pisces, and of course that double fish symbolism, just shall we say, is all in the gospel, isn't it? In fact, what were the Christians first called? They weren't called Christians. They were called Pisciculi, which means little fishes.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that one.
That was in the 1st century AD.
Oh, so just going back to clarify the other question. So the Marys, did they have their own kind of sect?
No, they were followers of Jesus. And remember, they were all Jewish now. Christianity had not come out as Christianity as such. They were pious Jews, but they were followers of Jesus. I mean, really.
And that was kind of like,
because he was considered a prophet. Nothing else, huh?
The followers of Jesus were kind of diverging a little bit from the Orthodox Jews, right?
Yeah, you could say that. Okay. If only because of the prominence of these 3 Marys, or actually more than 3 Marys, but these Marys.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. That's the reason why they arrested him, tried him, and hanged him, because it was not only blasphemy. There's another word besides blasphemy. It's
sacrilege.
When you go off of the
heresy.
Heresy.
Okay, heresy.
It was heresy.
Yeah, heresy. There we go. Okay. Yeah, Ben Pandera. Okay. We got to move. There was a gospel. There is a gospel of Mary Magdalene. And someone was wondering. This is a long answer, so if you could give a short one to it.
All gospel what now?
Why was the gospel of Mary left out? Mary Magdalene. Is there a short answer to
there's
that?
a fairly short answer. And that is simply this. Who was writing? There were 12 gospels that we know about. All right? Only 4 became the New Testament. Because what happened is Emperor Constantine told all these warring Christian factions, he said, go to Nicaea and get it all sorted out. Don't leave until you do. And that's when they came up with 4 gospels that everyone could agree on. And these were men. Then women were not going to be prominently, at this time in history, there was no way that women were going to have any kind of real presence, shall we say, in the dispensation, in the revelation, let's put it like that. So there was a gospel of Mary Magdalene, but she was not going, that was not going to get into the canon. Mm-hmm. Oh no, there was, I'd say 8 of them that I know about. There might be even more that were considered non-canonical and therefore heretical.
So they're heretical.
Yeah.
Because they weren't included, not because there was anything wrong with them.
No, there wasn't anything. Yeah.
So say Jesus, the Ben Pandera's name. Can you say his full name?
Yahushua ben Pandera.
Okay. And so, is Jesus kind of our way of saying?
Yeah, it's a Greek word. Yahushua became Joshua, which became Jesus to the Greeks. Okay. Jesus is a Greek form of the name.
All right, these questions probably keep going forever and ever because it's such new information. It's hard to get a hold of it, but we do have to cut off at some point. So, if you do have some more questions, Dr. Finch would be happy to answer them in the comments. We do this every 2 weeks. We prefer Tuesdays, but sometimes we do Wednesdays as well. Just do a good 30 minutes of letting Dr. Finch speak on a topic that he knows a lot about. And I think that's beneficial for me, and I think that's also beneficial for a lot of you out there. So that's kind of what we're doing that's what we're doing here and what this is all about if you're new. That's basically it. We're going to wrap up, and we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.